Thank you for joining us here with another episode at MSP Business School. Today, as always, we're here with Tim and Brian. So welcome, everybody. All right.
How you guys doing?
How you doing?
Today, we're going to be talking about the MSP account manager, the person that is in charge of growing your existing business, your most valuable asset, your existing customers. And, we wanted to talk to you about a little bit of the differences that we see out there that can really drive up revenue with a shorter sales cycle. So, with that, I'd like to, just jump off here with Brian and, kind of tell us a little bit how you find success in this from your side.
Yeah, so, I'm going to take this from two approaches. Obviously, for, almost 20 years, I ran an MSP. And, what I saw was the best part about being an MSP is it was the gift that kept giving, right? Mm-hmm. Once you got into a client, and if you managed them properly, there was always new needs, new projects, new services that came out of that relationship. So, the biggest cost, of course, is the cost of acquisition. So you've really got to roll up your sleeves and get close to your customers. We started really doing what we called strategic account management. That whole process is really what served as the foundation of launching VCIO Toolbox from the QBR perspective. Without jumping ahead into that piece of it, it was really our account managers had the assignments. At first it started with me as an owner-led account manager, but then as we started expanding out the team, we had obligations that we had to meet with the decision makers within our clients, at least on a quarterly basis. Quite candidly, we didn't care about the size of the customer because we wanted to make sure that we were out in front of those customers, understanding what was driving their business, what was influencing their decision-making for over there. Were they encountering any challenges? Here we are sitting in the middle of still the COVID crisis, and whatever strategy we had in January is thrown out the window. So that could happen in any business, from a key account loss, key personnel loss, supplier loss, let's say, right? So we really want to make sure that we're out there as account managers talking to our clients, understanding what's going on, and then we're able to take those initiatives back to our tech and solutions teams and really figure out what opportunities might drive there. And those really become your sales opportunities. So that's what we really saw. And, a little bit later, I'll tell you about how I've really been seeing the account management role almost turning into a hybrid VCIO role in the big picture as well. So how about yourself, Tim? What are you running into?
Well, I think just from pulling from our experience, just from back when we were in the MSP industry, one thing that we found to be successful, and although I was never in the position, the MSP that we used to work at, they had somebody who was more of that account manager / inside sales role, right? And we found that it was, if you use it effectively, man, can it be profitable? I mean, look, I think we all inherently understand that most techs and engineers they are not salespeople, let's say, and I don't mean that meanly. It's just kind of the reality. But if you can bring in an account manager that can talk to your client base and just give them all the updates, so what's new, the new technology, mix them into those quarterly business reviews. I don't know what the stat is now, but I know 5-6 years ago I heard multiple times that if you're an MSP and you bring on a client, the average is you're gonna pull 7 to 9 projects out of that client over the lifespan of them being with you. The best way to do that, if you have a large enough client base, which is, we'll say 50, 75 clients, what we've seen is a lot of MSPs, if they have that account manager, they can really start pulling out that revenue way faster than normal. And they can do it in a proactive way. They can do it with those QBRs and man, it can be effective, very effective.
Brian,
you kind of hit on that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, Brian, I got a question for you. So, there's a couple schools of thought out there. There's, client account managers, the CAMs, and then there's technical account managers, the TAMs. What are you seeing out there right now? And, what do you think is more valuable at what level of MSP?
So, again, I think you've hit upon it. It really depends on the level of MSPs, right? And I think we'd all agree there's a different set of skills involved in that, MSP that's trying to reach its first million. There's probably a different set of skills that live in those MSPs that sit, I'd like to say between 1 and 5 million, but really probably between 1 and 3 million. And then when you get past 3 million, that's when you're really starting to seem to hit a maturity stage where you can really start isolating those roles a little bit more so, right? So oftentimes what I see is that first jump, right? When guys hit that $1 million point, they're starting to see how they can better their processes and where they can interject other people. And traditionally they'll go to, I see a lot of times they'll go to that technical account manager role because quite frankly, they can get more mileage out of somebody that way, right? They've got some technical chops, so if things get a little burdensome over there, maybe they can pitch in on the help desk or help find some things there. And they got enough personality to be an account manager. And one thing I will say, for any firm, look at your engineers. Rob loves to use the term unicorn, right? So, I'm going to say the unicorn you're looking for is that guy that's got a mixture of business acumen and a little bit of personality, and he has engineering chops. And those are the guys that morph into the SE roles, the technical account management roles, and ultimately those leadership roles. Reason for it is they're stealth salespeople. They just know how to engage with the other engineers. And by doing that, they find that information that then materializes into deals. My old partner, Frank, used to call me from places all the time. And he'd be like, dude, I just had lunch with these guys. And they said they're going to rip out the Exchange server in 3 months. Don't call for a week, but get it on your radar, right? So, that doesn't come back to him. If you can find those guys, it's great. But if you see guys that have those traits, usually when you hit that 1 million barrier, you can start morphing those people into technical account managers, and they can start kind of liaisoning with the clients, maybe doing base QBRs, but really looking at their equipment, finding out where, developing the beginning stages of a roadmap, and really also, facilitating warranty updates, that free money that sits down on the ground that often gets overlooked by a sales rep because they're chasing a quota that they need to hit that far exceeds a $500 warranty renewal, right?
Right.
When I see it jump to the next level where you get to those customers that start getting to $3 to $5 million in account management, though, now you're really talking about almost a pod approach. Meaning they're looking at their customers and there's an assigned client manager or account manager, however they may term it. He'll be side to side with a technical account manager. They may have a VCIO that sits above them, but works with 2 or 3 of these sales pods. And then they might have help desk resources or dedicated engineering resources for their patches. When you got that, you really see that the account manager and that technical account manager, if they both exist in that regard, are working very symbiotically. Those guys are acting as SEs, supporting the account manager as they drive through that process. The AMs are going out and really focusing on the relationship side now. So they're kind of pushing away from having to know the technical stuff and really focusing on the customer and what drives their business. And by doing that, they're able to take that information, pass it to the TAM, who now has enough experience to kind of come up with that and maybe work with the VCIO to even tailor those bigger overarching plans. But again, you got to be at a certain level of maturity before you really get into that process. But as you can see, if you can get there, now your account managers are truly hunting and relationship managers, right? They're out there meeting people. They can really use their time to find that new business. And then your supporting cast is really mining the gold that sits within each and every one of those accounts.
Okay. Tim, on your side, do you see what types of traits are in the technical account manager do you look for? Do you see maybe in the DISC profile, are you looking for that influencer type? Are you looking for more IS? What do you see as that person that can really help out in that role?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at a DISC profile, the average tech or engineer, these are all general, right? It's not necessarily true with everybody, but a lot of times an engineer mind is
put them in the box.
Yeah. They're either a high S and a high C. It's just the reality.
Yep.
So if you need to be able to influence people in this kind of scenario. So you're ideally, if you're looking at somebody who is in that technical account manager, they have that engineer mind, so they're probably a higher C, but they also have a higher I, right? So they can sit in front of somebody.
I think you're going there, Rob. Do it.
Yeah, do it.
No. I'm just asking the questions here, fellas. I'm just asking the questions.
All right, so I got a question though, Tim, for you, right? Here's the reality. I'm an idiot. I don't know what a high C or a high S is. So give me kind of a little insight into what that means to me so I can kind of track with you on how you're describing these folks.
Yeah, sure. So, in the DISC profile, there's a lot of different, they're not personality tests. They're more like communication styles. How do you communicate with people and how do you like to be communicated with? And it's DISC, right? A high D is a high director personality, kind of, aggressive. They're more entrepreneur. They're more bullet pointed type of personalities. A high I is more that influencer. They like to engage with people. They like to be around. They're very social type of people and like that kind of personality. The high S it's a little bit different. It starts to change. And this is the high S, and the high C is where you start going into more of the process person and the more rule-based person.
Gotcha.
And these are the people that like the details. They like, like having all the processes out. They don't like to wing it. Right? Like the sales guy is more, the high D's and high I's like to wing it. The high S's and high C's, they like to be more process oriented and rule oriented. And so that's kind of like the differences there, between the two major personality traits.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just because somebody's, like I mentioned before, anybody can have a personality that works in any role. It just, from a sales perspective, there's definitely salespeople tend to lean more on the higher D and higher I. Techs tend to be more on the higher S, higher C. And that just means, again, that they're process driven. They need rules. They need their day structured. They're very black and white.
Very steady.
Yes, slow and steady wins the race. And
yep.
I think we can all agree that most salespeople don't think that way. So
nope.
it's just
or shiny.
Just an inherent difference.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing two things then from you guys. So these guys are high S's, high C's, really means they're process oriented, rules based, whichever category they fall into. But we're talking about them in a sales role, which you said really relates to those D and I kind of guys. So, kind of hit me with where you think that intersection works and why these roles really work in a role of technical account manager.
Go ahead.
So the way, in my opinion, the way it can work is, look, a technical account manager is never going to be making phone calls. They're never going to pick up a phone and make a cold call. They're not going to be the guy or girl who is making 50, 60, 80 cold calls a day. They are process driven. They need to work within a box. However, they have the personality and they can read people enough in the influencing phase to be able to sit with somebody and say, you know what? You influence them onto the idea that they're talking about, but then back it up with facts, right? And that's where a technical account manager can really be a huge asset. It's they are not a true salesperson all the way through. However, when they get in front of somebody, they do have the ability to read the room, understand, read the prospect that they're sitting across the table from, and be able to feature and benefit them on why they should use the service or get the upgrade or do this for the QBR, do that for the QBR, and what's in it for them. They're able to make that transition. Whereas you're somebody who is more of a high S, high C, they don't always necessarily know how to read the room. Right. So I'd say that's probably the biggest difference there.
That's key. You got to be able to read that room in order to really make headway.
Hey, Brian, I got a question for you.
Yep.
So, on the QBR side, should it really be a QBR, especially for smaller companies, or should it be moved to semi? Should it be annual? Where is the money and the easier money for these technical account managers to get?
So, we'll start with kind of frequency of business reviews, right? We've all kind of taken on to the term QBR. I'm actually not a fan yet. My whole world revolves around it, right? Because, reviews are really meant to be as they're needed for clients and as they're going to be effective for clients. And also ties back to the content really drives the frequency of those. So when you say, kind of how should we do it? We have a client rating system that we utilize within our, VCIO toolbox trainings, and really it assesses things like revenue and profitability as you'd expect, but we're also looking at intangibles. Does this customer look at the solutions we bring to the party and actually execute? Do they treat our technicians and help desk nice, both on the phone and on site?
Yeah.
Do they embrace our team and our logic and help drive referrals back to our business? Are they in growth mode? And growth doesn't always mean that that's the best customer to go after, because, steady as she goes is also a pretty good customer. Think of accounting firms that are 15 people and will be 15 people for life, but really, provide nice contracts. So we look at these different criteria so we can actually scale our look across our client base and not be influenced by these guys build 10,000, these guys build 2. That means 10,000 needs more attention. That 10,000 might cost you 11, right, to deliver those services. It'd be really noisy. So when we take those things into account, that really structures then the frequency. If we see this as an opportunity year for that customer, and there might be some opportunity because they're going through growth or some change, we may want to see them a little bit more frequently. If there's somebody that's not going to change much, those accountants, there's nothing to say if you go out more than once or twice a year, right? Because things don't really change in their environment. And these guys aren't the guys that are in the forefront of technology. They're not bringing in bleeding edge, right? But the real critical piece is a little bit more than the frequency is how you engage with those customers. Too many QBRs focus on metrics that only matter to the MSP. They spend time on tickets, they spend time on SLAs. That's a lot of patting yourself on the back. A technical account manager's got to take that step of really looking at their client and going, why do you want to do this? Let me put myself in your shoes. Why would I want to buy this project from you, right? Why would I want to do that? If you do that and really work with them on building a strategic plan, then you're identifying the gaps in their environment. You're taking those recommendations and aligning it back to that strategic plan so that customer, especially a non-technical customer, has the business case that shows them how they're going to move the needle forward in their business. Now you're going to really be able to get there. And that's a lot to ask for a technical account manager. But collectively, again, those 3 to 5 million customers, you can build a team that really can do that effectively. And again, frequency really comes down to then the reception of the client too. You might have the best client you should meet with quarterly, but if they don't want to be in the room, annually is going to be all you're going to get out of them anyway. Yeah. Hope that answered.
Yeah, it did. So the one last question I have here is, with people that are doing these technical account manager positions and they're out there and they're trying to do these QBRs, I know most of my clients, when I first talk to them about this, they always talk about refresh cycles, and that's the driving force behind the entire thing. When I believe that's kind of the smallest piece to it. You don't need a technical account manager to talk about refresh cycles, right? That's the easy stuff. It's the strategy moving forward and being that asset to help them grow is where how do you train to that? How do you build that technical strategy piece?
Well, to be candid, we look at it in five simple ways, right? So, when you're spot on in this, number one thing that you can look at is obsolescence. But you know what? You can send your administrative assistant out to show them what their obsolescence plan is, right? That's pretty obvious. It's dictated by rules we don't create, right? Warranty and end of life dates. But there's 4 other things that you got to consider as a technical account manager when you're talking about projects and you're trying to think like your customer. Are these things going to help drive productivity and efficiency for their employees? Second one is it going to enhance a workflow or potentially automate a process that's manual today for this company, thus saving time and money? The third thing is, does it better secure the environment, protect our data, and make our staff more aware of what the dangers are out there? And the fourth thing that can contribute to project or service selection is, then does it provide a return on investment or a lower total cost of ownership? And then you even got to think about intangibles like data breaches. It's not necessarily just the cost of money, it's the reputation risk that goes with it. And then the cost of even simple things like credit monitoring that now you have to pay for those people. So, good owners can really work with their technical account managers to help them think about those 4 factors. And that's really what drives a strategic plan and a technology roadmap. Obsolescence just fills the gaps with things that have to be replaced.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's it for me, guys. Do you have anything else for this episode and as it relates to the account managers, the technical account managers?
For my spot, it's real simple. It's just, stay in contact with your customers. Nothing replaces good communication and continually, checking in with your customers just to make sure things are good and not just relying on times where there's tickets or trouble to be the only contact you have with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. One word that you hear to almost nauseum in the MSP industry is being proactive, and that means different things to different people. But at the end of the day, it's staying ahead of issues before they happen, and a good way to do that is by having an account manager. Um, so yeah, there is a huge need for them out there for sure.
Good. Okay. All right, Brian, what's on the docket for next week?
Next week, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about, sales process, exactly how you can do these, and maybe a couple of different sales models that are out there too.
Okay.
Not every MSP runs their sales teams the exact same way.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks a lot, fellas. Really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to chatting next week.
All right.
Sounds great.
Have a
Take
good
care,
day.
guys.
All right, take
Bye.
care.